So the subject for today's video is going to be a little different from the last videos that I've made or you might have seen. I'm going to be dealing with more of a spiritual aspect of things and my philosophy and beliefs on that. Now, before I go farther and explain spiritual this and that, I'm going to explain what I mean by spiritual, because most people probably think that I'm talking about like church and stuff when I say spiritual, and there are more definitions behind the word spiritual. Alright, so basically what I'm saying when I say spiritual is about personal gain. You know what I'm saying? Something in that way. Not like I go to church every Sunday, so I'm spiritual. No, it's about things that you might have come across in your life and times in your life that may have put you through some trials and tribulations, and you grew and learned from that. Therefore, you have become more spiritually adept to certain things and situations. So that's what I mean when I say spiritual. Not dealing with like church and stuff like that right now. Okay. So the first part of what I'm gonna be talking about is the soul itself and what we all seem to have a longing to do, which is kind of better yourself along the way. I think this is a longing that comes from within in every person that's consciously aware of themselves. So let me see, I got my notes right here that I'm finna read off. Okay, so I'm about to read off of what I have written down. After I finish reading, I'm going to properly explain what I was reading. Alright, so that it makes sense to you. To master the crown is to understand one's inner spirit, body, and mind, in unity with love, nature, life, and earth. To do this, one must strive for a goal. The striving is what teaches one about oneself, while the goal is simply a map guiding one on the journey of learning. The first step in this journey is devotion to oneself. Alright, so what I'm saying is, when I say to master the crown is to understand one's inner spirit, the crown is basically your heart, your will, or your soul. That's your crown. That's where things originate from. Your urges to do whatever to satisfy what you're feeling. For example, let's say I have a bad eating habit. I eat a lot of fried foods or whatever. It makes me feel bad, so I decide I want to change that. So I start eating better to better myself. Okay, the urge to change myself because I was feeling bad came from my heart, my will, or my spirit, whatever you want to say. So I'm calling that your crown. Okay. So all of that collectively is the crown. And so to understand your inner spirit, your body, and your mind, you have to set certain goals for yourself, right? To achieve. Now how you're going to acquire understanding this is through the goals that you set for yourself. So I set the goal of wanting to become better in my health. That's the goal, right? So right now I'm at bad health because of my eating habits. I'm bad at that. Okay. So by me setting that goal as my endpoint, I'm gonna try to achieve that. Trying to achieve that is what's going to teach me about myself. Now, let me give an example of that. I might start off like, I keep eating a lot of fried foods. I decide I want to change that. So I start adding in vegetables every time I eat. You know what I'm saying? A large portion. More vegetables than fried foods. Okay, so that's a step. That's teaching me about myself by me coming up with the idea I need to maybe add more vegetables. I know that I'm not going to just stop eating fried foods altogether, right? So striving towards that goal, I learned something about myself. I need to limit this much to control what I'm doing, right? So, in the same way that, I figured out this is bad for me, I'm going to do this as my endpoint to change what I'm doing. But I know that I need certain steps to reach that endpoint, right? Okay, each of those steps that I take to reach the endpoint is teaching me more and more about myself. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I mean by you have to set a goal for yourself in the end, and it starts to change what you do. Right? Now, let me see. That's also what I mean by the striving is what teaches you about yourself, while the goal is just a map guiding you on a journey of learning. So it's not always about the end point that you might be envisioning yourself as, but rather what you're doing to achieve that endpoint. You might never reach your endpoint of what you set for yourself, which is exactly the point of setting something really high and above what you dream you can achieve, because it's what you go through to get to that changes you as a person. Okay, and I end by saying the first step of that is devotion to yourself. What I mean by devotion to myself, let's go back to the example. I said I eat a lot of fried foods, it's bad for me, so I decided to change my diet to better my health, right? Then I said I might start off by, having more vegetables or whatever on my plate than fried foods. Okay, that's the beginning of a devotion to myself. That's the first step that I've taken to ensure that I reach that goal of better health, right? That's the first step. That's devotion. That's me showing devotion to myself. I'm devoted to myself by taking this step to better myself. So the first step in that is devote. To backtrack and to cover all of what I said, you have what is called the crown, which is where, your heart, your will, and your spirit collectively is together. That's where everything originates from. You know what I'm saying? That's basically your drive and your function. It comes from your crown. Okay. You seek to understand, certain things about yourself. Why do I do this? Why do I do that? You find yourself questioning that all the time. You do something, you're like, Dad, why I go do that? You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing comes from the crown, your inner self, so to say. All right. You begin to understand that inner self by setting goals for yourself to achieve once you notice you're unhappy or you constantly question yourself about that. Okay? You begin to set certain things for you to change that about yourself, especially if you don't like it. All right. And by you setting those goals or whatever to change yourself, that is how you begin to learn more about yourself and change you. You know what I'm saying? Now, the whole key of me saying this is that you take note of how you're progressively changing. Because if you don't take note of that, then you will, start going back or don't see the point of continuing because you are unable to notice your progress. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where a lot of people fail at when they set out to do certain things. They never take notice of themselves changing, and no one ever says that they see that. You know what I'm saying? So it's up to you yourself to take note of what's happening with your life. If you want to change certain things about that, or you don't feel comfortable about who you are or what you do, sit down and take a look at where you're at and where you want to be at, right? Now, the point of that is to set where you want to be at so far and really believe that you can make that and strive to do that. So that's the point of what I'm saying. All right.